Hello and welcome to the EFL Fantasy Podcast. My name is Jamie.
My name is Angus.
And my name is Dan.
And it's that time of the season again. We are here to preview the 23-24 Championship season, specifically for Gaffr, and this is part one of three, where we will preview 8 randomly selected teams. And when I say randomly selected teams, basically we are recording this on Wednesday the 26th of July, so 9 days before the season starts. And we've chose these 8 teams because we believe they're the 8 teams who aren't going to change that much. Well, we hope, don't we?
That's the hope.
So yeah, we have time stamped it, so if anything does change, well, we don't want anybody going, I thought you said this about him or whatever. We're not Mystic Meg, we don't predict the future. But we're going to do our best to preview these teams now. So, shall we get straight into it?
Let's do it.
Right, okay, so how we're going to do it then is I'll talk us all through it, and we're going to go through key outgoings, key incomings, likely lineups and formations, the league position predictions, best Gaffr assets, the budget assets, and under the radar assets. And now we have, shall we say, recruited people from all of the clubs, correspondents, shall we call them. So we will give them a shout out. So if anything's wrong, you can go and moan at them. They're the ones who give us the information. So Angus, let's get into the first team then, and it is one of the promoted sides. It's Ipswich Town. Finished second last season in League One. The bookies this season have them as 5th favourites and at 5-1. Now bear in mind, all these prices were taken when I edited all the pictures the other day, so if it's changed, not my fault. So who was it who was giving us the Ipswich information, Angus?
It was Luke Irons.
Yes, the number one Ipswich fan.
Yeah.
He's Ipswich till he die.
Yeah.
He's very kindly give us all the information. So, key outgoings then, Angus. Has there been any?
He's listed Kane Vincent Young. I don't know who that is.
No, I don't either. Do you, Dan?
Fullback. Yeah, he's a fullback.
Yeah, I thought you'd.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, what about incomings then?
So he's listed the main ones as Jack Taylor and George Hurst.
Okay, and does he give us a likely lineup / formation?
Yeah, so he said most likely is a 4-2-3-1.
Okay.
With Walton in goal, back four right to left of Clark, Wolfenden, Burgess, Davis. Likely 2 in midfield of Luongo and Morsey. Then 3 of Burns, Chaplin, and Broadhead behind Ladapo.
Perfect. And I viewers, don't worry, I'm not speeding through these, and it's not just that. We're just going to go through the information we provided, and then we'll have a general conversation around them, our thoughts as well, if we agree, disagree, that kind of thing. What league position has Luke predicted?
So he's predicted them to finish 13th.
13th, okay. Best Gaffr assets?
Leif Davis.
Of course. Budget assets?
He's given me 3 in a row, so I'm not sure which one is which, but I think he's saying Broadhead.
Okay, and under the radar assets?
I'm not sure I agree with him on this, but he said Chaplin. I'm not sure it's possible for Chaplin to be under the radar, but that's what he said.
No, I'd have thought maybe Ladapo hasn't been brought up as much. Okay, so that's the information off Luke. So obviously, thank you very much, Luke, for that. I'll come to you two guys now. So from a Gaffr point of view, what are your thoughts on Ipswich this season? Dan, I'll come to you first.
Look, there's 2 aspects of this, right? Overall, it's how well is Ipswich going to do. My opinion, they're not going to be 5th. I think Luke's probably been a lot more realistic to where I think they'll probably be. And but they will have some good assets at times where I think we will have 2 or 3 during the season, especially if it would get like budget busters and things like that. So Gaffr-wise, I think they'll be very popular throughout the season. I'm not quite sure they're going to do as well as maybe some of the outsiders think, but I can see why there is excitement with Leif Davis, ridiculous number of assists last year. Broadhead, if we listen to Iron's pod, he was very high with him with the bonus. So I think there will be players that will have, but I'm not quite sure they're going to do as well the bookies think.
Okay, Angus Dan said there, he thinks maybe we'll end up on maybe 2 Ipswich players throughout the season, possibly even 3. Do you think that's because they're going to be good assets, or because obviously they're cheap because they've just been promoted?
A bit of both. So obviously with someone like Leif Davis, I think he's just going to be a good asset. The fact that he's cheap helps, but he'd probably be a decent asset if he was priced higher. The fact that he's at 5.0 just makes him that bit better. Some of these ones, like particularly the forwards, they might be decent, but I think we're probably looking more at them because of their prices, particularly initially.
So you've already mentioned some names between yourselves. Walton's probably going to start on goal, and he's 4.5. Davies, we know, is 5 million. He's 0.5 more than anybody else. So is he the only option defensively that you'd look to even potentially start with? You wouldn't look anywhere else?
I don't think it's worth the decrease for the other 3. I think he's so much... He's more attacking. I think he's on some of the set pieces as well. So I just think it's for 0.5, it's not worth trying to sort of, downgrade there.
And Dan, midfielders, not many names have been mentioned in the midfield area. Is there any that catch your eye you think might be considered, or are you more looking at the forwards and Davies?
I think it's going to be interesting to see how they line up, because obviously they've come up a league and they were able to basically play a front 4. I'm not sure at times they're going to be able to play all 4 together. So it's interesting to see, does like a Chaplin go to the main striker and Ladapo drop out, or something like that. And if that's the case, maybe someone like a Taylor, if he ends up playing 10 at 5.5, he might be the option. They have also signed Damari Hutchinson, which it's a bit of an unknown, isn't he? He's got bags of potential, but you get I think he'll probably play a similar position to Broadhead. So I'm not sure who comes out of the side with that happens. So there's options in midfield, but I think they're more of a wait and see at the minute.
And as a lot of our regular listeners know, I don't watch any League One, so it's like a complete new team coming up to me. I literally watch 0. So through pre-season, obviously I've been looking at the lineups and stuff like that. Harness, the midfielder, do you rate him? Because he seems to be doing okay in pre-season, 5.5 million.
Yeah. I mean, I'll take it, but yeah, I think he's a decent player. I think the only problem with him is, as we've said with some of these others, we're already thinking about which of the starters is not going to, he's going to drop out the lineup. Like, you've got enough players ahead of Harness that I think it's probably an issue with him of just minutes.
Okay, and then the forwards then, you've already mentioned some of the names. You've got Chaplin, Ladapo, Broadhead and Hurst, really, or 6.5 for Chaplin, Ladapo, Broadhead and Hurst, all 6 million. Who do you 2 favour from the forwards?
So at the moment in my draft is Broadhead. I know Luke said Ladapo in that predicted lineup. I should say that was before Hutchinson was signed, because that obviously does the most likely person to be knocked out of the lineup. However they move it around, the person most likely to come out of the lineup is Ladapo. And so I think Chaplin and Broadhead are both good options. I've gone for Broadhead slightly cheaper, and I was swayed a little bit by some of Luke's arguments about his numbers with slightly less familiarity with Ipswich. I'm sort of willing to to listen to him on that. But I do think that Chaplin certainly seems like a very good option as well.
Just a precaution on Broadhead. He came off injured, well, as a precaution. So just keep an eye on that. Obviously, Angus will go through the team news, but I think for me, and this is more how Ipswich will do overall. We've seen a number of these attacking players, Broadhead, Hurst, Ladapo. They've not really set the Championship alight. Now, obviously, they're playing in maybe a better system that will suit them, but there's still a thing in the back of my mind where I'm not 100% convinced they're maybe Championship players at the minute.
Okay, so I think that wraps Ipswich up then, doesn't it, really? So we'll move on to the next team then. And Dan, you're going to talk us through the next one, and that is Hull City. So last season, they finished 15th. The bookies have them down as 17th this season at 16-1. So they're not looking at too much progress. But what are the key outgoings from Hull?
Yeah, so a couple of players ended their loan. The goalie, Darlow, he looks like he's joining another Championship side. Pelkis also back on loan, and they let Callum Elder, the left back, leave in the summer.
And key incoming so far?
Well, they went a bit crazy last summer, but it's been a bit more planned. Liam Delap obviously had two not great spells in the Championship so far, but apparently he's got potential, and I rate Liam Rossignol, so I'm intrigued to see if he can get something out of Delap. Vinagre at left back on loan from Wolves. I think we see on the right side they got Christie, and if they've got Vinagre both attacking fullbacks, I think that'll be entertaining. And they've brought in Lokilo, who hasn't seemed to be in their first choice, but I think he's more of a winger. So yeah, a few interesting incomings.
Okay, and what do you think the likely lineup of formation is going to be?
Yeah, so I should probably tell you that this information's come from Danny McDonald.
Good point, Dan. I should have probably have said that at the beginning. I do apologise, Danny. I know you'll be listening to this. Danny McDonald, apologies.
Yeah, so he reckons Ingram in goal, but I think they'll probably be trying to get a new goalie in. From right to left, Christie right back. This was 4-3-3. McLaughlin, Jones, and Vinagre. We then got Sari and Slater with Adama, and then Tufan. He's put young Vaughan, which is someone I'm interested in, and Estupiñán up front.
That is very interesting, actually. We'll talk about that in just a second then. Where has Danny predicted them to finish?
He thinks sixth, which I think on the face of it might seem a bit crazy, but I think they're a lot more stable this summer. And like I mentioned, I like Rossignol, so I don't think it's like a crazy suggestion that they might climb the table, especially if they get a couple more signings. Maybe six might be a little bit too far, Danny, but ever the optimist.
Angus, are you still there? I think we've lost Angus, so we'll carry on, Dan, while Angus tries to sort that out. Who's Danny got as the best Gaffr assets?
So he put the fullbacks, Christie and Vinagre, which we know that fullbacks, wingbacks can do very well in Gaffr, so I can understand that. Both 5.5, a lot of good wingbacks at that price, so maybe hop on and hop off throughout the season.
Okay, budget assets?
He's put Slater. He was very good 4.5 last year, and he's been bumped up to 5, and I think he got a lot more attacking returns there we probably realise. So I can see why Slater's been picked as a budget option.
Okay, we're having more technical issues at the moment. Angus is back. You've
Yeah.
disappeared, but I can hear you, Dan. Under the radar assets.
He's mentioned young Vaughan, which is very interesting. I got to see Vaughan live last season, and he's very raw, but I think he could be like a similar mold to maybe like a Bowen or a Lewis Potter, which could be very interesting, especially in Gaffr. And I think he's 5 million as well. So if he gets a good run of games, a 5 million option to be on the bench, it definitely would be someone on my watch list.
Okay, perfect. Angus, you're back now. It's thrown me a bit while I was trying to sort out the technical issues. I haven't quite done that, but we're still here and we'll carry on. What are your thoughts on Hull coming into this season?
I think Danny's a little bit bullish. I don't think they'll be in trouble, but I think sixth is a bit bold. I look at some of the other teams and I'm not sure they're quite there, but I wouldn't sort of fault particularly say a top half prediction, like 10th-ish, but I think sixth is probably, at least at the moment, I like Rossini, I like some of their players, but I just think it's possibly a bit beyond them with some of the other players involved.
Dan, we'll go through some of the positions, and obviously Danny's put Ingram in goal. We think that you're back on the screen now.
Yeah.
We're gonna get a new keeper in there, so we won't talk so much about Ingram, but I think most of the interest will be with Christie and Vinagre, won't they? Both fullbacks. Do you have a preference in which one?
I'd probably lean to Christie just because we've seen Christie in a number of teams in the Championship, and we know even last year he played right wing at times. So I would lean Christie, and at 5.5, like I mentioned, he's in that price with a lot of others we'll probably talk about throughout the pods, where I think jumping on and off in that range could be nice.
Yeah, and Angus, the midfielders, there seems to be value in the midfielders. The highest price is Turfan at 6 million, so if they do start well, there's plenty of value there, isn't there?
Yeah, and I think it goes throughout as well. Like, I'm not necessarily going to go with someone like Seri, but I think if they get in the team, someone like Longman, Traore, Lokilo, and then obviously down to like Slater and Vaughan at 5. So I think there's potentially value right through their midfield area.
Dan, do you think Seri could become an option? Because I remember at times last year, and it might have been the very first game that stands out, there was a lot of big chances created, wasn't there? Wasn't there something ridiculous like 6 or 7 in a game?
Yeah, and I think we know set piece takers can do quite well for key passes. Yeah, I wouldn't rule it out, but I think if we get someone like a Vaughan playing on a wing regularly, I think I would lean to him, to be honest.
In the strikers, Angus, I found that quite interesting because you've got Estepunian at 7 million, who Danny thinks will get the nod up front. But then you've got Delap, obviously, is coming on loan. Tete's there. And Siada Manish.
Close enough.
I was going to say, I've got to be close with that.
Yeah.
So there is a couple of options there, and if there's only that one spot, do you think Estepunian's nailed, or do you think there could be a lot of rotation or someone playing wider?
I don't think he's nailed, in part because we saw him get left out at the end of last season for Tete. So I'm not sure Tete is actually good enough to lead the line regularly, and I think Estepinian would probably be ahead of him. But it's difficult to say he's nailed because of that, and they have brought Delap in, so you would assume that would be to play. I don't like him. I don't like him as an option. I don't dislike him personally. I don't know him personally, but I don't like him as an option. I don't think he set the world alight in two different clubs last season. And while that can be difficult for a player because you have to adjust to a new team twice, don't think he showed enough for me that makes me think, oh yeah, he's going to be a great asset this time. It may well be that it gets into the season and he proves me wrong, but yeah, Delap's not for me.
I don't think that is out the question, because, I've slated him quite a lot. I watched him for half a season every week, and it was very frustrating. But I have always said there is a player in there. You can see that with his movement and stuff. I feel like he just needs to mature, grow up a little bit. He was picking fights with Rotherham centre backs that he's never going to win. Pick your fights wisely, use your strengths, and it wouldn't surprise me if there was times where he does do well this season. But I agree with you; it's not somebody I'd look at. Is there anyone on your watch list to start the season with? I think it's just Christie for myself.
Christie's the main one for me. As Dan said, the fact that he might play on the wing, even whether initially or at times, does add that extra appeal. But he's the main one for me. There's no one else really from Hull that I'm looking at to start with.
Dan?
If Vaughan does look like he's going to start, he'll be on the watch list, but it'll be hard to go there, I think, unless you're 100% no, to be honest.
Okay. Well, we'll move on to the next team then, Dan, and this is one of yours as well. This is Bristol City. Who has given us the information for this one, Dan?
Myself and Spencer.
FPL Beery.
Yeah, it's been a nightmare getting Bristol City up.
So basically, he's saying nobody supports Bristol City, and he's had to do it himself.
Well, yeah. So if you are a Bristol City fan, let us know, please, and we might use you next year.
Yeah, or even throughout the season, more knowledge is better for us. If you're watching your team every week, you're watching more than us. We can only watch, what's in front of us on the TV. So if you're watching your team every week, please get in touch, give us feedback, give us information. We're always happy to take more information on. But Dan, then the viewers will trust your expert views, I imagine. So key outgoings then at Bristol City.
Yeah, so De Silva, who's gone to Coventry, left back. Kane Wilson, do you remember him? The hype in game week 1 last year.
He come on against
He's gone to
last
Derby.
week. In the
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Did he look good?
No. Well, he would just
defend. Where did he go in the end? Because I think he failed at least one medical. So, Derby, okay.
And Masengo, who was a really weird situation because he was clearly good enough to play week in, week out for Bristol City, but yeah, I don't know what happened there.
Where's he ended up going, Dan? I missed that one.
There was links with Burnley, but because he's a
I'm Googling him now.
Yeah, I think he might still be a free agent.
Unattached.
Yeah, I know Burnley wanted him.
There's a report yesterday that he apparently rejected a Burnley move.
Interesting. Well, the incomings on Dan.
Yes, so Ross McCrory, who I think is going to come in as a right back for them, but can play a number of positions. Angus, you'll know more, being a fan from the Scottish League. Hayden Roberts, another defender who can play left back or centre back. He was on loan at Derby last year, was a Brighton player. Rob Dickey, who moved from QPR. Jason Knight, another Derby player, come in midfield, who's highly rated. So interested to see how he does. Yeah, they're the 4 transfers in so far.
Okay, and what do you think is going to be the likely lineup / formation then?
Yeah, so I think it's going to be 4-3-3. O'Leary in goal. I think McCrory would have been the right back, but he's injured in pre-season, so I think Tanner will play right back. Dickey with Viner at centre backs, Pring left back, and then James DM with Scott and Knight as the centre mids. Obviously, Scott can go at any minute. And the front three is is absolutely rotation risk galore. You've got on the right Cornick and Sykes, on the left Maheti and Bell, and up front you've got Conway and Wells. So I didn't feel I was, and either did Spence, and felt like it was right to name a front three because we honestly don't know. So
you didn't mention Vyman in that.
I was about to say Andy Vyman.
Yeah,
Is that just another
I
rotation
don't
risk?
know.
You think?
Yeah, I think he can just
He could
play
fill
anywhere.
in anywhere, couldn't he? So
Yeah, that's
Well, we've seen him at
that's the
right
thing
wing
with
back
him.
at times, haven't we?
Yeah,
In a back five.
yeah.
So
So
yeah, I can't
from
fault
what I
that
gather,
effort.
I'm pretty confident.
So obviously I missed this
The
part at
rest
the
of the
beginning.
team, apart from the front three.
Last season they finished 14th. The bookies have got them down for 15th this season at 14-1. Where have you and Spencer predict them to finish?
Yeah, probably around the same. I think it's getting to the stage though, where it's make or break now for Pearson. He's basically had a bit of money to spend, the odd 1 or 2 million here and there on players, so he's got to start showing improvement, I think.
Okay, best Gaffr assets?
Well, I've gone for Conway or Wells. If one of them get a decent run in the team, Bristol City have been quite attacking the last couple of years, and even young Conway done well. Wells, when we were looking at him during early parts of pre-season, we were surprised with the number of goals he got. So I think if we maybe get like a spell where one of them are out, I think the other one who's fit and available could be the best asset.
Okay, budget assets?
I've gone for Sykes just because he's a cheaper winger out of all the other wingers, and if he's playing, he done quite well last year for a spell. So yeah, Sykes.
Yeah, 5.5. Good value. Budget, not budget, under the radar assets?
Mehmeti, I think, now settled in after a spell after signing in January, and I think there's quite a high ceiling for Mehmeti. So I'm intrigued to see how well he does.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much for that, Dan. Angus, I'll come to you first, and let's break down the team a little bit. O'Leary obviously probably can get the number one spot, 4.5. Not a bad option really at 4.5, is he?
no, I think it's a decent option there. Obviously, there's another 4.5 that's looming over everyone, but I think O'Leary is still a decent option at 4.5.
And then Dan, all the defenders are valued at 5 million. Is there any value in that defence? Like, could you pick one out that you'd consider?
I think I'd edge towards Pring. I think towards the end of last season, he got established at left back and was quite attacking. So I would probably edge Pring over any of them.
Now, are you just choosing him just to pick somebody, or would you actually put him on your watch list to start the season or not?
Well, it's a Bristol City defender, so I'm not sure I'd have him on the watch list. But if you're asking me if there's like a budget, I don't know, like a double game week in the future, and you said pick a defender, I would pick Pring.
Right, okay. Angus, midfield. We've got Vyman. He's the most expensive at 7 million because we know he can play at front at times. But then there's quite a lot of variety. You've got Cornick, Mehmeti, Scott and Barrel at 6, Sykes, Knight at 5.5, and then you've got your cheaper midfielders at 5 and 4.5. Is there anyone there that tickles your fancy?
So people who listened last year will know I'm a fan of Mehmeti.
Yeah.
Bristol City, I actually went to watch one of their games last year.
Oh, you did on a stag do, didn't you?
Yeah, as you do on a stag do, we went hospitality at Bristol City, which was very enjoyable time. They played Reading. But there's a little bit of a buzz whenever Mehmeti gets the ball that I think is different to some of these other players. So he's one that I'd potentially be interested in, not necessarily to start, but particularly if they have sort of a good run or a double or something like that. He's the first one I would be looking at, I think.
Yeah, and you're paying $1 million less than Vyman, aren't you, as well there as
Yeah.
well. Forwards then, we've got Wells at 7, Conway at 6.5. For me, I don't think I'd even consider starting with them, but if there's going to be one that jumps out, who do you prefer? Dan?
I like Conway. I think we saw at times he looks like a natural finisher, and I think there's a chance he could explode if Bristol City are as attacking as we think they might be this season.
Angus?
Yeah, Conway would be the lean, but I'd want to get a better idea of what it's going to look like as well.
Okay, right then, we'll move on to the next team. Quite a surprise, people might be surprised they're in this first part, but it is Norwich City. So last season they finished 13th, which is quite disappointing for them. The bookies have got them down for 6th this season, around 4-1. Who's give you the information, Angus?
FPL Frog.
FPL Frog, okay. Key outgoings then.
So he actually left off outgoings and incomings. So I'm on Transfermarkt frantically finding their outgoings and incomings. So they've obviously had a number of notable ones. So like Teemu Pukki left, Kieran Dowell left.
And technical issues, strikers again. We are down, and I can't even wing this and come to you, can I, Dan?
Not really, no. we can sort of jump to like what we think of Norwich. I'll talk to it.
We'll come back to them if Angus does come back. Let me just get their team up. So in goal, you've got Gunn at 5.5, Crow at 5. So we're expecting Gunn to be the number one.
Yeah, I think he got established last season. He was the number one, and I think he done quite well when he was in the team. But at 5.5, got no interest in him, to be honest.
No, and defenders then, you got Max Aarons and Stacey both at 6 million. And they basically competing with each other. They're the most expensive. 5.5, you got Hanley. Amabadali. Oh, it's close. I'm getting better at this.
You are, yeah.
Giannoulis, obviously left back at 5.5, and Duffy, who's arrived. You've then got McCallum and Gibson at 5, and Tompkinson at 4.5. Obviously, you're spending a bit more there in that defence. Do you think there's any value there? You could go to any of them, Dan?
I would 100% go for Jack Stacey. Like, it's not even a question.
Right, okay,
100%.
I ask you this because obviously you're a Luton fan. There's no bias involved here. Do you think he's got that spot?
I think so. I think it's been quite common knowledge that Aarons is going. I think they've sort of agreed with it mutually that it's probably the best time for him to go. So I know he's still in the game and he's not left yet, but I don't think he even played in pre-season. I know he was out with the under-21s. But for me, Stacey is basically just such an attacking fullback. He'll basically play in winger most of the game.
See, I agree with you, but what happens if Aarons doesn't go? If nobody comes in for him, you're not going to just keep him on the bench, are they?
I don't know. Like I said, I think he's gone. I think they take a fee or he gets loaned out or something like that. That's from what I've heard. So for me, it's obvious it's Stacey. It's number one choice, I think.
Okay, and for the audio listeners, Angus is back, I believe.
I am, yes. Sorry, I'm having extensive technical issues. So,
and every time you come back, you kick Dan over this. Oh, Dan's back on the screen now, so we're all good. Angus, we just started talking about the defence. I'll come back to you now regarding the key incomings. Were we on?
Yeah, so the only other outgoings I was going to mention was obviously Barley Mumba, who they sold. Key incomings, you've got Christian Fastnacht, who's coming from Young Boys. You've got Ashley Barnes from Burnley, Jack Stacey, Shane Duffy, Borja Sainz, who's a winger. I think that's everyone.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to go with that's everyone.
And what's the likely lineup that we think that's going to be in game week 1?
So Ian reckons it's going to be a 4-2-3-1.
Okay.
So got Gunn in goal. Back four, right to left of Stacey, Gibson, Duffy, and Giannoulis. Midfield two of McLean and Sarah. Three of Fasnacht, Sargent, and Hernandez behind Barnes. He has also, as a bonus, given potential percentage likelihoods.
Okay.
So you've got some of them that are 100%. You've got Gibson at 90%, Duffy and Giannoulis at 80%. He's also got Sargent at 80%. The interesting thing is he's got Fasnacht and Hernandez at 60% and Barnes at 70%. So he's sort of suggesting there's still a little bit of uncertainty around those attacking spots at the moment.
Interesting. And what league position has he predicted?
I've just realised I don't think he's predicted a league position.
Okay, we'll go with what do you think then, Angus? We'll go with your prediction.
I think they'll be challenging for the playoffs but finish just outside.
Okay.
So I think 7th or 8th.
Yeah, I agree there. Best Gaffr assets?
So he's listed 2. Jack Stacey.
Yeah.
I'm sure Dan's talked about him already, but we know all about him. And Gabriel Sara.
So we've got Stacey, 6 million defender, Sara, 7.5 midfielder. Who's he gone for budget?
So budget, he's got Jonathan Rowe. So we've talked about him quite a lot in sort of chats and whatever.
Yes.
He's getting a lot of minutes in pre-season. There's a 4.5 mid.
And I'm sure we're going to talk about him in a minute when we get to the midfielders, aren't we?
Yeah.
And then under the radar?
He's put Nunez.
Okay.
Because one of the things he said is he thinks that Nunez could be the one that's asked to replace some of the creative responsibilities of Dowell, with obviously him leaving. So he could obviously come into the team and be a good option. Particularly, I think he particularly suggested maybe as a 10 and Sargent or Barnes plays.
Okay, so thank you to the Frog for providing us that. And then just to bring you up to speed where we were, Angus, while you were away, we were talking about right back, so Stacey, but what's going to happen to Aarons if he doesn't get a move? What's your opinion on that? Because I think that is quite interesting and quite important.
I mean, I assume he's going to split time, because if you've got someone like that there, you don't just not play them.
Exactly, yeah.
But I imagine that they're not going to get to the end of the window without a move.
Yeah, no, I agree. So we've got Stacey at 6 million there at right back. Centre backs, at 5.5, they're not major assets to have in the game. But Giannoulis at left back, 5.5. If he stays, could he be an option? He was a pretty good couple of years ago when he got promoted, wasn't he?
I think so. Personally, I think if he does stay in the team, I think he could be a decent option. Obviously, with that slight saving, I'd probably still be inclined to go with Stacey, but I think Giannoulis could be one.
Okay, midfielders done. So we're looking at possibly Sarah and McLean playing more as a central midfield, and then, actually before we go into attack midfield, Sarah, is he an asset if he's going to play deeper?
Yeah.
Yeah, and what's that based on? Is that on set pieces, key passes, or what is it?
I saw. Well, actually, Ian sent me the video of the free kick he scored in the friendly yesterday or the day before, and I'm in.
I'm in for that.
But yeah, I think that there is an element of sort of the set pieces, the key passes, the fact that he can clearly take a free kick as well, which obviously helps in terms of it's another way for him to get chances and returns. So I think that sort of means he can be an option wherever he plays.
Okay, brilliant. And Dan, this is where I'm struggling with Norwich. And the reason why I won't be starting here, I'm not saying I'll never go here, but to me it's quite uncertain, this, attacking 4 players, let's say, because you've got we'll start up front. You've got Ashley Barnes been brought in. He's 7 million in the game. But then you've also got Ida at 6.5 and Sargent at 8.5. Now, I know we spoke on a couple of pods where we think Sargent could play through the middle, but there is possibilities he could play over on the left. So, what are your thoughts regarding, the attacking players from Norwich?
Yeah, Ida, I don't think is anywhere near the starting 11. Yeah, Barnes is such a funny one because he didn't start the season for Burnley, but towards the end, he was one of their key players. I know he didn't always return with goals and assists, but it's just what he allows the rest of the team to do. I would like to see Sargent play through the middle. And if he plays through the middle, I think he's worth 8.5. But if he's now on the wing, is he worth 8.5? I'm not sure. I don't know what you guys think about that.
I haven't got his goal contributions in front of me, but I'd be interested to see them, what they were like from when he played over on the left. But from my very poor memory, you know how poor it is, I'm trying to recall something from Sargent last year and I'm struggling to. Maybe Angus can help me out here.
I think he did best. I mean, I don't have the returns in front of me. I think he did best when he played through the middle. And so I think that the only sort of other role that I'd be happy with him is if he's playing that role behind a striker, because he is at least still playing in central areas and can sort of get into the box easier and that sort of thing. So if he were out in a wide area, that would make him of less interest to me.
Okay, and then let's talk about Rowe. He's 4.5 million. He's gained a lot of minutes in pre-season, so I'm not necessarily saying he's someone to start, but he's a perfect enabler, isn't he?
In theory, yes. I'll just do a brief sort of recap of what Ian said in terms of on the wings. He did sort of give a brief explanation of what his thoughts were.
Okay.
So he said this time last week he'd have said Onel Hernandez and Rowe were most likely to start. He thinks Hernandez is a favourite of Wagner's, which I think if we think back to last season, he was going to leave and then suddenly was in the team regularly. So that sort of, that does check out. And then he said, but Solis has done quite well with Giannoulis on the left-hand side. So, he could be an option as well. And then you've got Fastnacht who's come in, who Wagner, I think, worked with at Young Boys. So, yes, who will be 7 million. It's not in the game when we're recording, but will be in. And so you've got a few there that could be playing over Rowe. So while it seems like a great option at the moment, it's one of those where you may you kind of don't want to mess around with your 4.5 mid. So he's been in the whole time for me, but actually sort of hearing almost about all these options, it's sort of been like, yeah, all of a sudden it might have to be someone else. The dream might already be dead.
No, I agree, because I said the other day in our chat, didn't I, or what other chat it was in, he's going to definitely be my third sub every week, my Sam Field replacements. But listening to you two talk here now and looking at it in front of me, I know it's going to be third sub, but I want them playing.
Yeah.
It's pointless, really. I know he's 4.5, but it's pointless having that on your bench. We know what Gaffr's like. You need your bench, so yeah. Anything else on Norwich before we move on?
I'd just like to give Ian a shout out as well, because he did say we gave correspondents the option of giving a bad pick, and he said Grant Hanley. So I just really appreciate that. He did also mention, actually, so I will direct people to this. He will perhaps do an updated predicted lineup on Twitter, which is at FPL Frog, after they play against Olympiacos. And he also said he'll be starting a free-to-enter Gaffr League with a prize for the winner. So another reason to follow his, in his words, infrequent and mediocre tweets. But so I'll sort of mention that for him as well.
Yeah, sounds good to me. A free week with a prize, I will definitely take that. So that's brilliant though from Frog regarding all that. Norwich, massive wait and see for me. I really don't know what to expect from them. So we'll move on to the next team then, and this is going to be from you, Angus. It is
Yeah.
Watford. So last season, disappointing and finished 11th. Bookies have got them down as 8th this season, coming in at around 11 to 2. And who's give us the information regarding Watford?
So Joe Finley Badder, who I think is Joe Amra Batman. I think that's what he's on Twitter.
Right, key outgoings then. He did say, because actually we were tasked of getting 8 teams each, and I spoke to Joe. He was a bit hesitant at providing this straight away because he thinks a bit might change now.
Yeah.
So bear in mind, this is the 26th of July. Some stuff might happen in the next few days or so. But key outgoings, Angus.
So he's got Joao Pedro, who obviously went to Brighton, Ismail Assar, who's gone to Marseille, Hamza Chowdhury, who went back to Leicester, and Hassan Kamara.
That's brutal when you say them first two names, like Joao Pedro and Ismail Assar, because they're unbelievable.
Yeah.
It sounds really bad when you say that they've lost them. Key incomings so far.
So there's 3 so far, which is Jake Livermore, Tom Ince, and Reece Healy. But he also said Jamal Lewis, is obviously a left back, is almost confirmed. And then they're still looking for a striker and a centre back.
Yeah, so by the time this gets released, because we are pre-recording it, aren't we? Because we've still got to do the other 2 parts. Jamal Lewis is probably going to be a Watford player. Likely line-up a formation then, Angus.
So he said it's either a 4-3-3 or a 3-5-2. We should mention, obviously, another key incoming was Valerian Ismail. So that creates a little bit of uncertainty over which way he might go with this team. But he said Bachmann in goal, Ferreira, Porteous, Hoot, and Lewis. In midfield, Sierralta, who's dropping into centre back out of possession, Kone and Luza, Asprilla or Martins, Healy or a new signing, and Sema.
Right, okay. So quite a lot of uncertainty around Watford at the moment there. What league position is he predicted?
10th.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Joe's not biased at all. He knows his stuff,
Yeah.
doesn't he? So I think that's fair, but you could see him a lot higher than that, or even potentially lower than that. Best Gaffr assets.
So he's put in defense. He's at the defense at the moment. He's listed Porteous for starts, and he'll play 90 minutes. I think Luke did mention that he was good for defensive actions as well. One of the only defenders who was. And then he said Ferreira or Lewis for attacking potential. And then he's listed Loser in midfield, who's on a lot of the set pieces. And in the attack, he said avoid for now, unsure on who starts.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Budget assets?
He's put probably Loser, underpriced slightly.
Yeah, 7 million. And then under the radar?
He said maybe Asprilla, not to start with, but could be good later in the season if he nails down a starting position.
Okay, that's really interesting. Thank you very much for that, Joe. I feel like we've got a lot to talk about here, and I've just refreshed my phone and gone off the screen. Right, Watford. So we know Batman's going to start and goal. Pretty obvious, good keeper, but 5.5. It's not someone we're really going to look at, is it? But if somebody does want to go down that road, would you talk them out of that?
Probably, just because we've talked about goalkeepers not worth it, and so when you've got multiple decent options at 4.5, the most I would go to is 5. Like if you can justify it for a particular goalkeeper, I don't see the value in going above that.
Okay, so defence then. Cabasele's gone through Udinese now, hasn't he?
Yeah.
So 6 million, then you've got Porteous and Ferreira, Hoyt there as well. Ngakia, Sierralta, I'm terrible of these, I apologise, at 5.5. Pollock, Morrison, Andrews all at 5. Dan, I'll start with you, because we know how much you love Watford. What are your thoughts on the defensive assets there?
I think we saw it would probably be Ferreira out the ones at the club at the minute. At 6 million, he looked quite attacking for the brief spell we saw him in. I am sort of intrigued by Andrews if he was a youngster last year and got a few minutes towards the end of last season. I know he's rated quite highly, and if he got in at right back for a period of time, I think he could be a very decent option.
And what about Jamal Lewis if he comes in? Obviously, we haven't got a price for him yet. He's not in the game. But do you think he could be a good option? You know, he's kind of been, I think you said earlier on down in the group chat, kind of forgotten about. He was highly rated before
I think that was
Newcastle.
Angus.
Yeah, that was
Angus?
me. I'd forgotten he existed.
He was very highly
Yeah.
rated before he went to Newcastle, wasn't he?
But he was part of the team, the Norwich team that got promoted. So he's obviously have previous at this level. So yeah, I think he could be an option at left back. I think he'll be nailed as well. Like I think it's more certainty over him at left back than Ferreira, I'd say.
See, my problem is the price. You're talking 6 million, and I don't know what Watford are going to do. It's quite unknown how good or bad they're going to be. So I'm pretty put off by that, and I can't see myself going for any of the assets. But midfielders, I think there's one who stands out at 7 million. It's Loser.
Yeah.
How do you pronounce his name?
Loser.
Oh, sound that'll do. Loser 7 million. Talk to me about him, Angus. Big him up for me.
Yeah, well, he's in my draft, so I'm sort of willing to take the positives on that. Obviously, set pieces, big thing, particularly under Ishmael. The style isn't always going to be the best, but there is that production from set pieces. Is a good quality player, and I think if someone's asked to get forward and support the attack, pick up the second balls, it might well be him as well. But for those people who were playing 2 years ago, because I got on this and did quite well, if you remember how Alex Mowat did in Gaffr under Ishmael at Barnsley, thinking similar sorts of things to that as well.
Interesting. Dan Tommins signed at Watford. He did okay at Reading last season, to be fair to him. 7 million this year in the game. Do you think he's an option?
Not at 7 million, I don't think. Especially as I don't think he's a guaranteed starter either. And also at Reading, he was the main man, weren't he? He was on everything set piece. He won't be that at Watford. So yeah, it's a massive avoid for me.
Is there anyone else that stands out in that Watford midfield?
So there's a couple that I was going to mention. So we haven't really mentioned Ken Sema. Yes. Kind of a boring player, I think, or sort of less flashy, but he gets the job done. He will pick up points, and I think he will start regularly. So I do like him. I'm not sure whether I'd be willing to pay 8 million for him. Maybe if they start clicking, he's someone who could be an option. And then the other one who I know was highly rated last season when they got him and they brought him back again is Martins, the winger. So if he gets a spot in the team, particularly at 6.5, he could be interesting.
Okay.
But not to start with.
No, I agree. Forwards then, bit of unknown. He was coming at 8 million. Played in the French second division. He scored goals there. But is he an option? You got Bayo at 7.5. I'm just really not keen on any of them. It's just not somewhere I'd go. What about you two?
Yeah, I wouldn't touch Watford's striker position, especially as Joe said, he thinks another one's coming in as well. So, yeah, I think Watford have some assets, but forwards are a massive swerve for me at the minute.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't interest me.
Right, perfect. That all leads on to the next team then. Angus, you're going to talk us through this team, and it is Millwall. So last season they did finish 8th. Bookie's prediction, they've got them down as 12th, coming in around 8-1. Who's gives the information, Angus?
That would be Donna. We love Donna.
Yes, and I'm just trying to think of a Twitter handle because it's just Donna, isn't it?
Uh,
It is Deptford
Depth of
Diva one
Diva.
two five.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, lovely woman. I look forward to seeing Donna at the end of August when we go down to Millwall. So talk us through Millwall then. Any key outgoings?
So she said Mason Bennett and Scott Malone.
I watched Mason Bennett last night. He's at Burton Albion now.
Yes, he is.
Yeah,
Yes.
I didn't know that till last night. Incomings.
Kevin Nisbet, striker from Hibernian. Wes Harding, who we obviously saw in the league last year with Rotherham. Casper De Noor, who's a Belgian midfielder. And Joe Bryan, who we've seen in the division before. He came in as a free agent after leaving Nice. We obviously last saw him scoring a playoff final winner for Fulham against Brentford.
Is that where he was at? Nice?
Yeah.
Wow, didn't know that. You learn something new every day. What's the likely lineup formation then for Millwall this season?
So she said, unable to predict the lineup from pre-season, formation has been 4-4-2, but likely to change as new players are integrated into the team.
Lovely bit of uncertainty around Millwall. That's exactly what we need. What was the league position that she's predicted?
She's said expecting to be in the playoffs, if not seventh.
So just a slight improvement then on last season. And, I couldn't argue with that. They're going to be there or thereabouts, I'd imagine. Best Gaffr assets?
Fleming if he stays, and Nisbet.
I hope he stays. I'd be gutted if he left the league. I want another season of watching Fleming. I think he'll be even better this year. Budget assets?
She said she hasn't looked properly at the prices, but maybe Danny McNamara.
Okay. And he's coming in at 6. And then under the radar?
She said keep an eye on Romain Esse. See if he gets good game time. I think he's been playing quite a bit in pre-season.
Yeah, so he's coming in at 5 million as a midfielder. It's quite interesting with Millwall because for a number of years we've known them to be really good defensively, and their prices have reflected that, haven't they? But let's break them down, Dan. I'll come to you first. Goalkeeper situation. Obviously, last year we know Wong had the jersey. Burkowski's been a favourite and Gaffr over the last 3 years. Who do you think is going to get the nod and goal?
I think it's probably Long, but as we've mentioned, it's 6 million. He deserves to be one of the most expensive because he's in Millwall, but I'm not spending 6 million on a goalie.
No, I completely agree. Defensively, then Angus. Obviously, Brian's come in. He's 6.5. We've seen what he's done previously in the Championship, so I think that price is justified. But then you've got Wallace Cooper and McNamara at 6, Hutchinson and Harding at 5.5. Now, I'd say, do you see any value in that? But premium defenders, would you be going there?
So I know I've said in a couple of different places. I've very much got eyes on Joe Bryan. Obviously, at his best going forward, I think he's probably still got something to offer. We've seen him perform well in the division before, and if we project how, like Millwall being sort of similarly solid defensively, I think the attacking returns he can potentially offer on top of that makes him sort of one very much on the radar for me.
And you were nodding then as well, Dan. Brian, on your radar?
Yeah, I think he might not be in there from the start. We'll get through it throughout the pods. There's a ridiculous number of fullbacks I like and probably everyone else likes, but he always has to be on the radar because of what he's done and who he's moved to in Millwall. So yeah, he's definitely on the short list.
I'll be honest. I remember him signing, and then I've completely forgot about it. And when I've been looking through and doing my watch list, I've just bypassed him every time, and I don't know why. But 6.5, I need to know he's nailed if I'm going to pay that price. Midfield, Angus, I'll come to you first. Fleming's coming at 9 million after his impressive debut season last year. But then I think there's potentially some value. in there in the midfield. They're a lot cheaper. You've got Honeyman at 6 with Watmore, Bury, Saville, and Dinor coming in at 5-5, and then you've got 5s for the rest of them. Obviously, Fleming. We don't need to talk about Fleming. We know how brilliant he is. He's definitely an option. Is there any more in there for you? Watmore has his spells, doesn't he?
Watmore, who really belongs with a T at the front of his name. So no, he won't be a consideration for me. He does get sort of in those good positions. He does have the odd game where he returns. But the one thing I would say is if you're going to own Duncan Watmore, don't watch Millwall games because he will frustrate the life out of you. Even if he gets returns, he will frustrate the life out of you. On a more positive note, I think there are a couple potentially interesting. One is George Honeyman. He's one who's obviously shown up before for things like sort of the key passes because he's a very good set piece taker. So that obviously helps, particularly on a team like Millwall with some of their weapons. And as Donna said, particularly because I noted he was getting a lot of minutes in pre-season, SA at 5.0 is the other one that's sort of on the radar for me.
Yeah, two things there. Duncan, if you are watching or listening to this, that's Angus saying that. I think you're a fantastic player.
This is the views of me, not the EFL Fantasy Podcast.
Yes, just Angus. Me and Dan love you. Second one, Honeyman. I know you haven't started, the injury spreadsheet yet. That'll come in probably next week, Angus. But Honeyman did go off. I think I saw it in the first friendly. He only lasted less than half an hour, I think it was. Have you heard anything regarding that? Is he fit?
I have to admit I haven't got into injuries yet, so that would be entirely sort of guesswork on my part at this point.
Well, hopefully he's fit. If he hasn't played, it's a bit of a concern in getting up to fitness. Dan, anyone for you from that midfield lot?
Yeah, I'm intrigued with SA or whatever.
We'll go SA.
Pronounce it. We'll go SA. He had a few cameo appearances towards the end last season. He's quite young. He's probably similar to Vaughan of Hull, who's maybe one of these youngsters. We get it every year. Really cheap youngster that comes in and does very well. So he's on the watch list, but I need to see him play before it becomes an option.
Okay. Forwards. Two interesting price points. Both of them coming in at 7.5. You've got Nisbet, who's obviously joined this summer, and then not everybody's favourite player. He did well for a lot of people last year. Some of us didn't have him, but Bradshaw at 7.5. Now, Donna's obviously spoke about the two potential formations there. How do they set up? Do they play both of them? What are your thoughts, Angus, on that?
So they've mixed and matched because obviously they have been a team that I've sort of tried to pay some attention to this pre-season. They're a good team. They're potentially going to have some good options. So I've tried to get an idea of that, and they have mixed and matched. The interesting thing, I think it's the day before we're recording, they played a one up top formation with Fleming coming in, and it was Nisbet who started and Bradshaw was on the bench. That probably sort of indicates where they are. I mean, I think they spent, I don't think it was massive, but they did spend sort of in the millions of pounds on him, which for Millwall is no small amount. So I think that gives an indication he is going to play. Whether that's with Bradshaw ahead of him, whether he's going to be the sort of 1A and Bradshaw's the 1B, I'm not sure. But to me, it indicates that Nisbet is going to play more often.
Okay. Dan, your thoughts on that before we move on?
Yeah, I think we need to know what formation, who's going to play. But Angus knows Nisbet more than I do, having followed the Scottish football. We've also got that, can he adjust to the Championship? We've seen strikers do it and we've seen strikers not. So I think they've got a tricky spell to start with. So I think maybe that they're definitely a good watch and see for the first few game weeks. But I'd love to have Fleming in my team at some point. and definitely one of the strikers. Although I missed out on Bradshaw last year, so we all know what's going to happen this year.
Yeah, I was with you, Dan. So let's hope that doesn't happen. Right, we're going to go on to the next team then, and we're into the last two now. Dan, you're going to talk us through Blackburn. So last season they finished 7th. Bookies have gone down for 14th this year, so quite a drop off, and they're coming in around about 10-1. Who's given us the information for Blackburn?
Yeah, so we got FPL Droddock, Darren,
Okay,
and so the massive one is Breren Diaz, isn't it? We've known it's been happening for a while, but he did leave on a free. Bradley Dack obviously went.
Of course he has. I forgot about that because he hasn't been picked up
Yeah,
yet, has he?
no, his minutes gradually got lesser and lesser with Sammy Smodics coming in towards the end. And also Ayala, centre back, he was very injury prone, but he was a leader on the pitch. So I wonder if they might miss him. Yeah, they're the main ones.
And then the incomings.
Yeah, so they were quite busy to start off with. Ennis, they signed on a free from Plymouth. Be interesting to see if he can step up to the Championship. Sigurdsson, a left winger, I think to replace Brereton Diaz, and Tronston, who's a DM. Yeah, will be interesting to see how that plays, because they like to play out from the back, don't they? So I'm guessing the manager wants someone able to do that. So he's used his knowledge of the Scandinavian nations.
Okay, brilliant. And what's Darren got down for the likely lineup/formation?
Yeah, he thinks 4-3-3 with Kaminsky or Pears in goal. Kaminsky started the season last year, got injured, then Pears took over, and Kaminsky couldn't get back in. I also know that some clubs are in for Kaminsky. Luton have been linked with him today. Yeah. Back four of Rankin, Costello, Heim, Carter, and Pickering. Then got Wharton, highly rated DM, with he thinks Smodics, I think more as a 10, with Trostan probably. And then left wing Sigurdsson, right wing Hedges, and striker, he's a bit unsure between Gallagher, Ennis, or Dolan. We've seen Dolan play the false nine at times. So, yeah.
Okay, and where's Darren going to finish?
He thinks top 10, probably 8th.
Interesting. Okay, best Gaffr assets then?
He's picked Rankin Costello. I think we saw towards the end of the last season just a really attacking fullback who at time played even as a winger at times.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not that surprising really at 5.5.
No. Budget assets?
He's put Smodics at 6 or 6. I think he's 6.5. He's wrote down 6. We mentioned that going, and throughout the season, Smodics played more and more minutes, and he's a player I like, so I can see why he's picked Smodics.
Okay, and last one, under the radar?
He's picked Dolan, which I can see because he's got so much potential, but it's not a guaranteed starter, is he? So he's definitely on the watch list, but he's got to prove he's going to play consistent minutes for me.
No, completely agree. Right then, let's look into Blackburn then. So, Angus, Dan has just spoke about the keepers there. Kaminsky is at 5.5, Pears at 5, but we think Kaminsky may leave. Do you think Pears has got the number 1 spot?
My guess is for the moment Kaminsky has it unless he leaves, but given the likelihood that he will leave, I would guess it would then drop into sort of Pears.
Shame because Pears at 5, you're probably still giving like we'll talk on part 2 or part 3, whichever part they're in. But everybody knows Dieng has gone to Middlesbrough and he's
Yeah.
4.5, so it's a bit of a shame. Defence, let's get him out of the way. He's,
Yeah.
he's hot property, let's say, in the Gaffr community at the moment. I've seen him in every draft.
Yeah.
Ranking Costello, 5.5 million. Is he going to be in your team, Dan?
Oh, he's not in my team at the minute.
He's not.
But like I said, he's one of the numerous wing backs that are definitely on the watch list. And if anyone has him, I can't fault him for having him. But you can't have them all, right?
Right, Angus, cheer me up. This party pooper's ruined the Costello party. Is Costello in your team at the moment?
He's been in since I set the team up.
Yeah. It doesn't help through ownership, though, when he scores a hat-trick in pre-season, does it?
I mean, if people want to pick him because of that, because he played against, I think it was a Belgian pub or an Austrian pub or something, then by all means. But yeah, it certainly helps the hype when he gets a hat trick. But yeah, I mean, very attacking player who's converted, I think, back from being a winger to being a fullback, so he has that attacking sort of tendency in him. And I think if you look past the West Brom opening fixture as well, they have a nice little run to start. So, and opening day anything can happen, and then after that he's got a nice little run. So he's I don't think he's going anywhere for me.
No. And his price is interesting as well, 5.5, cheaper than the premiums. We have got 7 million defenders in the game this year, 6.5s and 6s. But Hyam and Britton and Pickering all coming at 5.5. So does that rule them out then because of Costello?
For me, yes. I think there's an argument to go with Pickering in particular. If you want to look at him, he's the most likely, I think, to play left back. But for me, I wouldn't be looking past ranking Costello anyway.
Okay. Dan, midfield. You spoke about some of the players already. Sigurdsson comes in at the most expensive at 7. And then you've got Smodic, Stolen and Hedges all coming in at 6.5. And then the rest a bit cheaper. Who've you got your eye on from that midfield?
Sammy Smodics. If he's playing in the 10, I think he's got good creativity. Maybe not on the set pieces, but just in game. It'd be Smodics for me.
Yeah, I agree there. Angus, regarding Smodics, Buckley's fit now, and I'm a big fan of Buckley as a player, not as a Gaffr asset. Do you think there's chances of rotation there, or do you think Smodics has got the spots and it's up to Buckley to try and take it off him?
I think Smodics is likely to play, in part because he can play the multiple positions as well, so it might be that somebody else drops out. Smodics, for example, goes to a wide area and Buckley plays the 10 if they do that. I think Smodics is more likely to play either way, so I wouldn't necessarily worry about Smodics from that front.
Okay. Sigurdsson, Dan, is obviously new to the league. I can't say I know anything about him. Quite highly rated, so it'll be interesting to see how he gets on. But Dolan and Hedges, both at the same price. Obviously, you've just mentioned Dolan has played as a false 9 at times, but primarily as a right winger. Who do you think gets the nod over on that side? Do you think it's Hedges?
Ooh, that's a shout. I haven't got a clue. It's difficult because I noticed last year that if Hedges would start, he was always off around 60 minutes. So it's one of those, he might start, but then he'll come off and then they'll rotate. And I'm just not sure with either of them about the minutes at the minute.
I had Hedges early on in the season last year and I had to come off pretty quickly because of that reason, like you say. I think what's good though is, we don't have to go in there straight away. They're all very similar priced. So if somebody does start standing out, you can jump on to them quite easily. Forwards, I think, is an issue, but I do think, they need someone. Gallagher's the most expensive, 6.5, and he's has stepped up a league at 6, and then you've got Young Vale at 5. Let's be honest, there's not an option there at the moment, is there?
No, I mean, the closest thing to an option there is probably Ennis at 6, because there's absolutely no way I'm owning Sam Gallagher. So
well,
it would have to be Ennis, really.
For £5 million, I can't believe it. But if he joined Stoke, would you have him at 6.5? Or is that even worse?
I'm not even sure if that's better or worse.
Well, I'm just going to say, just in case he's listening to the podcast, I'm a massive fan, and if you did join Stoke, I'd be over the moon.
You'd briefly, you might think about maybe putting him in your Gaffr team.
I don't know about that. I might be pleased just because it means I might have to watch Dwight Gale as a centre forward. But
that's fair.
That's for a different podcast anyway.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think that wraps Blackburn up, doesn't it, really? There's one standout option, a couple of wait and sees. And then we can go to the last team then, and Dan, you're going to take us through this one. It is Sunderland. So last season, finished 6th. Bookies have gone down for 9th here, around 13-2. Who has given us the information here, Dan?
Spencer, FPL Beery again.
Yes, for those wondering why he's done Bristol City and Sunderland, he is a Sunderland fan who lives in Bristol. I think I got that right, haven't I? Because his dad's a big Sunderland fan.
Yeah.
So in a way, he kind of supports both, but Sunderland are his team. God, where am I at? Key outgoings, Dan.
Obviously, Diallo was excellent last year.
I
Gelhardt. See, I don't. And Bailey Wright. I think he went back to Australia, I think. I think Gelhardt, it was a hard shoes to fill with Stewart. Needed to really play out front in the 2. And I think they should be okay with replacing Diallo, especially. They'll just play Roberts and Moore, I'd guess. And they'll probably loan someone in anyway.
Okay, Kean Cummins.
Joe Bellingham. Not seen too much of him at Birmingham. Lewis Semedo or Hema. He's always out on the team sheets, which threw me off when I first saw his name. But he's in the game as Semedo, Lewis Semedo.
We'll call him Semedo.
And,
Semedo, yeah.
Yeah. And they signed a couple of young centre backs, Triantis and Slout. They struggled with that centre back at times through injuries. They had to play 09 there, which wasn't ideal. So yeah, I think they've gone a bit youngster and very interesting recruitment from around the world. So you'll never know how they'll adapt, really.
Okay, what likely lineup has Spencer got?
Yeah, he reckons a 4-2-3-1. So Patterson in goal, Hume right back, Ballard and Bath centre backs, with Sirkin left back, Neil and Ekwart DM, with Roberts. He's not sure of the 10 position. That's definitely up for grabs. Clark on the left and Semedo up front while Stewart's recovering from injury.
Okay, and what league position has Spencer got?
5th.
He finishes 5th, so just slightly better than last year. His best Gaffr assets?
Clark at 9 million. He done very well last year, and he cutting inside, linking play. I know Irons Luke said he massively overperformed his data, so I'm intrigued to see how well he does. But yeah, I think Clark could have another good season. He'll be the main man if he's there.
Okay, budget assets.
He's named 2. He's put Barr, who's 5.5. I think he's one of those who could play in the 10. And if he's playing in the 10 for a very attacking Sunderland side, that'll be a no-brainer. And he did shout out Rig, a very young player. who's 5 million in the game, very highly rated.
Is he a winger?
I think is he a 10? I don't know.
I generally don't know. I'm just
Do you
curious,
know
really.
Angus?
I know he's an attacking player. That's as much as I can give you.
That's good enough for me. And under the radar pick?
He's gone Sirkin because I think he was injured a number of times, but throughout the season he did score the odd goal and assist, but it's just whether they can keep the clean sheets. I think Sunderland with their prices.
Okay, right, let's get into this team then. So I'm not going to bother with the goalkeeper, Angus. Patterson's going to be number one. He's 5.5. More than that, I'm not going to go there. Defence, really interesting this year because they've had a price bump from last year. You know, they were all promoted side pricing, really, let's say. Basically, Humes, Sirkin, Ballard and Bath, they're all at 5.5. Is there any value there for you at that price?
Possibly. As Dan said, Sirkin did get some returns last season, so he's potentially interesting. I did enjoy owning Trey Hume last season. Not just because he was 4.0. He
That's
did actually.
why I enjoyed it.
Yeah, he did that, but he did actually sort of return, and he was getting forward. So I think there's potential value there, but obviously factoring that in, I'm going to need to see that it's worth 5.5 before I go back there.
Yeah, Dan, your thoughts on the defence?
Yeah, pretty similar. I think we've mentioned throughout the pod a lot of good 5.5 within that price bracket, and probably better defensively. So I can't go for any of them at the minute.
Okay, midfielders. Now, this is where the serious business is with this team. Clark is now the most expensive player in the team, 9 million. Roberts comes in 1 million cheaper at 8. We'll talk about them two first. Obviously, Luke spoke about them quite a lot on our data pod that he was on last week. But what are your thoughts, Angus, regarding these two? Do you favour one of them?
So I personally, and it's not to say Jack Clark is bad because Jack Clark played well, I personally prefer Roberts. Part of it is about the million saving, and I just think, particularly with some of that chance creation work that he was doing, particularly, you know, when you're, I'm not having a good pod for just disparaging people and slagging them off, but when you're creating those chances for Joe Gelhardt, it's different to when you're creating them for an out-and-out striker, because I think Gelhardt is a decent player, but he's not an out-and-out striker. So I think that's something where you can almost see immediately a potential gain for Roberts in particular. So that's the other positive with him for me. And I think he shared some of the particularly set pieces with Diallo, where you'd think he would take that on much more with Diallo not there now.
Okay. Dan, do you share the same thoughts?
Yeah, I think I would agree with that 1 million difference, especially with some of the pricing of some of the key assets from Leeds, Leicester, and Southampton. I think we might need as much money as possible. Don't hate the double up at times, maybe. So yeah, I think we'll have them quite a lot throughout the season, to be honest.
See, after Luke was on the pod, I was drawn to Roberts for obviously the data that he mentioned and the 1 million saving. I've now seen a few clips of Clark in pre-season, and I'm back over to Clark. I can't help myself. As soon as I see something good, I'm like, yes, that's it for me. I'll be honest, I don't know. It sounds stupid, and it's not to discredit any of them, but because it's such a price increase from last year, I'm put off because I'm seeing 9 million. It's not massively premium, but I'm still seeing that as very expensive. I'm not saying they're bad picks at all. I'm really not, but I don't know if they're worth that myself. But we'll see when it comes around to game week 1. The rest of the midfield, guys, obviously Pritchard 6.5, Bellingham, Burnett coming at 6, and then they're all 5.5s, 5s and 4.5s. A lot of cheap players in there. Is there any that you're thinking about, or is it just Robertson, Clark in the midfield?
I think it remains to be seen, but I think there's some potential options. I know Rigger's done well in pre-season. I think he'll play very much a secondary role once the season starts. He's still very young, so I wouldn't expect to see him in the team. Two that I've got my eye on in terms of what they end up doing this season are Bellingham.
Yeah.
Not just because he's Jude's brother, but obviously they've made a real pitch to get him there, so that suggests that he's going to play, which is interesting, just to see how much he plays. And Bennett, who's obviously 6 million as well, did well for Costa Rica in their brief spell at the World Cup, looked bright for them. Didn't see as much of him for Sunderland, but there's clearly a player there. So I'm interested to see if we see more of him, because I think he could be obviously a very good option at that price if he does play regularly.
Brilliant. And then Dan, forwards. We know Stewart's injured. We haven't got an exact time frame for it. Is it September, October?
I think it's end of September, I want to say.
So, he's missing the first couple of months, so we know that. He's linked with a move as well, but we know he's brilliant. 8.5 million. We need a fit Stewart in the league this year, and I think he could be a brilliant asset. But my question is Semedo. Okay, I'll be honest, when they signed him, never heard of him. I thought, a youngster, maybe smart business. He looks like he could be leading the line. He scored a few goals in pre-season. He's 6 million. Is he an option, or are we just looking at him because Stewart's injured and he's the only striker, and we want a Sunderland attacker?
I think it's the mixture of both, and him being 6 million, it's basically a budget striker for one of the most attacking teams in the league. And since it was common knowledge that Stewart wasn't going to play at least the first few game weeks, I've been on Semedo. He's been in my draft, and he's probably the most likely striker I start with out of anyone in the game.
Angus, your thoughts?
Pretty much the same. I think some of it is that, he's going to be playing up front for Sunderland. It helps that they have a potentially nice start to the season, so it's one of those where you want to be on it at the start. The fact that Stewart's timeline has already been put back once as well means that you could have a 6 million forward for a team that we think is a solidly top half, playoff promotion contender. You can have their starting striker for 6 million.
No, yeah. I see your points. At first, I was a bit put off. I was like, do I really want him? Am I just getting him for the sake of it? But the points you make, 6 million. What could go wrong? He's going to be your budget striker. If he's not as good as I'd hope, he can easily sit on the bench. So, yeah. Anything else on Sunderland?
I don't think so.
Not for me.
No? So that brings us to the end then of part 1. That's the first 8 teams covered. Again, for about the 5th time, I'm going to timestamp it. It says the 26th of July, Wednesday. We're 9 days away. We're pre-recording this, so if anything has changed, there's not a lot we can do about that, but we don't anticipate too much, hence picking them 8 teams for the first part. So there's not really much to say other than that, really. We will be back very shortly for you guys with part 2, where we'll cover another 8 teams. We're just trying to gain as much information as we can before we record and release that. And then we'll be back with our final part, with the final 8 teams. And then basically, by the time all them 3 have come out, we're going to be in the last weekend. Game week 1 is upon us. Is there anything you two guys would like to mention before we say our goodbyes?
No, because our Planet FPL appearance will have happened by the time this goes out. So
yes, it will. We are recording with them tomorrow, so I hope you enjoyed that episode. Dan, anything?
And if you haven't listened yet, go and listen. We're also on Planet FPL.
Yeah. Dan, anything from you?
No, I think that's it. Do we want to mention the spaces?
We can do. We're probably going to mention it on all three, but yes, Friday, the
Yeah.
4th of August. Game week 1 is that day. Deadline is 6:30 p.m. UK time. We will be doing a Twitter Spaces. Did you say 5 till 6?
5:30.
No, we said 5 till 6.
5:30.
I don't want to be on Spaces while the deadline's here. I want to come off Spaces and lock my team in. So we're going to do 5 till 6, or maybe go over it a bit. But we'll do a deadline, so if you've got any last minute dilemmas, just want to come on for a general chat, please do. But we'll speak about that closer too. Thank you for all the correspondence, for providing the information. You know, it's really helpful from you guys. You see your teams every week. So, yes, I'll stop babbling on. We'll see you for part 2. Goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye.